Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Sovereign Society podcast. I'm your guide, Sabrina Riccio, and I've been waiting a very, very long time for this conversation. And I was like, you know what? I got to reach out to her. I'm so just grateful for the medicine and the answer of the call that Ayesha Ophelia has been doing. And it's been really amazing too, because I've seen how your brand has evolved as well. And there was a lot of similarities between you and I. Like, I remember when I first started, I was going by Shamanessa Gadessa, and you had the Girlfriend Manifesto. And I think both of us really heard this call of, we need to step into our power and not hide behind this mask or a brand name. Is that true? Like, I'm curious to hear what was the initiation that was like, hey, I'm going to change my Instagram handle. I'm going to show up as myself and I'm going to lead as myself.
You know what? I've been having sort of this love affair with masks. And I mean, I'm coming today with hair that would be almost impossible for me to have. And some could say this is a mask, but I actually have been realizing that there's something about, well, for me, it felt more like a revealing, because it wasn't like a decision I'd wrestled with for a long time. It just sort of was like the evolving of the brand. And I think it's sometimes the only reason that I'm talking to you now is because I had an idea that felt big enough for me to act on, where I didn't have to be upfront, because that's something that I really have reluctantly sort of gone along with. Like, okay, this is part of the work, this is the work that I feel sort of like I get little nudges, because I could be like in the kitchen just being creative and doing a bunch of things and then just kind of presenting it to people. But for me, it was just a nudge I got one night. I ended up saying yes to this really, I got an email from someone being like, I'd like to offer you a reading. And she said a lot more stuff in the email, and I just felt compelled. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And really it ended up being like this 2-hour long reading where I was like, oh my God, like, I don't even know how to get off the phone with this person. And we've joked about it. So this is like totally cool that I'm telling it. But I feel like I was waiting for the last 10 minutes to really get this message. And she was just a woman whose voice I could hear clearly when she said, like, I love that name, but there's something about your own name and your initials in this way. And I was like, you know what? Actually, that feels right. Like, that was what I was coming here for. And I literally got off the call with her and I said, okay, if my name's available on Instagram, it's just like this seamless, I thought it took like a week for it to change, but it was like, bam, and it just happened right away. And I was like, oh, do I like tell people? Are people going to be confused if they're looking for me? And so on some level, it does feel like I'm revealing more, but that I needed the Girlfriend Manifesto until a certain point. And I actually heard something today, and it was like this little self-inquiry. So maybe people who are listening can take it. And it's like, are you a person that stays in the building way too long, like the building's burning and you're just kind of hanging out and it was like giving you a set of instructions to do? Or are you someone who sort of listens and does it? And for me, it was like, I can sometimes stay with things long after their value has reached its peak, right? But for me, it just was like, okay, it's just like, it's time to reveal the next level. I'm ready to do that. And it felt seamless.
I love that. Yeah, it's interesting because I recently started a brand new Instagram from scratch. Okay. So in a way, I had like over 10,000 followers, but I just heard clean slate.
Yeah.
And so I started back to zero, and I had to wait 2 weeks for my old handle to transfer to my new account.
Okay.
But yeah, it's interesting. There's so many of us, we're hearing so many same, but different calls to really step in and to really show up. But I think that's a lot of the energy of 2022 with alignment. I think we can't bypass or ignore the path that led us to where we are now. And like you said, there comes a time where we need to just like take that leap into this next phase. Totally. And sometimes it can be scary because I don't even want to say necessarily complacent, but we've been comfortable. And we're like, okay, well, this is working. But until when you actually hear this isn't working anymore, or this chapter is complete, that it's time for me to embark on writing the next chapter or to start the new book. and to really honor the evolution of who we are and why we're here.
I love that. Yeah, the name of the game has been reinvention. I feel like we're being asked to like step in fuller, like step into the light, and you're like, okay, I'm in. Like, come on, further. It's like this process that, you know, annoyingly or excitingly never ends. Yeah.
I hear you. Yeah. I mean, it's been interesting to see, and there's been so many people that I've had, even as a guest here, that have either started their Instagram from scratch or they're completely shifting directions with the pillars of their business and the work they're here to do. Because again, like, this is an evolutionary journey. And, you know, I think it's important if your brand and your business is an extension of you, to be comfortable. Like, if you've shifted and you've been devoting time, that's what the whole purpose of doing the work is, to honor that evolution. But if you can honor that, you have to understand that, especially if your business is your, like, the face of your business, that is going to have to evolve alongside with you in order to be in this sustainability, in a way of being excited of diving into, you know what I mean? Because otherwise it's like, I've been doing this for so long. It's not fun and it's not exciting. And we have just this beautiful opportunity to really allow our work to be effortless and fun and exciting if we choose.
Yeah. To keep going with it. Do you know about your Business Deva? Have you heard this term before?
No.
So it's from a woman, and she's incredible. She's like the coach to all the, like, the bigger ones. Her name's Hiro Boga, and that's like that's not the greatest introduction to her work because it's so soulful, but it's sort of the idea that, so here's your energy, like, you come together with your business and then you create this sort of third energy that's your Business Deva, and it's sort of the guide for your business. And often we get the call and it doesn't quite feel logical. You're like, okay, I'm actually comfortable doing my podcast, and now you're asking me to, like, scrap it and do this thing. So it's like the energy of the business creates this third energy and asks us for certain things, you know, and I've been really wanting to honor what that energy is. And for me, it feels like sort of like my will, the business, and then how people are interacting with it. And that's often how I get my calls to service and to go deeper in. It's like, can you do this thing? And I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I can. I've never run a retreat. Or this is, you know, back in the past when I was sort of just building the platform with the Girlfriend Manifesto, I was just really comfortable sharing a lot. And then I was getting asked to do more. And it felt like the soul of my business was like, just nudging me out further and further. And, you know, here we are today.
Are you finding that? Because are you still running the Holy Smokes podcast, or did that Business Deva come in and help you evolve in that space too?
No, I wouldn't say that's totally scrapped. It still feels like something that's valid and important, and will come back around when and if the energy is there for it. But I feel like such a well of creativity, and at the same time, I'm hearing like, focus on this one thing, this part of your business. And so for me, this year, it's cultivating my work around dreaming and around sort of the metaphysics of dreaming. And it's something that I've been really like a student of and interested in, and really want to invite people into. And it's not just about your sleeping dreams, it's about your waking ones, and basically how to become more lucid in your life. You know, like if you're feeling like, oh, I need more love, I need more beauty. There's just, I need to feel more of these things. For me, it's more about lucidity than getting more things. It's not like, oh, I get that thing and then I got it. It's actually becoming awake to a lot of what we already have. And again, our power to sort of bring those other things in. So yeah, I'm feeling guided in that way.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, because something that I know for me, ancestrally, dreams have always been a big part of my family. I think it's coming from an Italian culture. I remember like probably 5 years ago or so, I bought my mom even like a dream dictionary, because something we do is we love to share in the morning or whatever. I chat with her. We always share like if there was a prominent dream that came in during our sleep state. We'll look at the symbolisms of all these things and also, interesting, and really do our best to connect the dots and into our lives. Yeah, so that's something that's been very ancestral for me. So I'm curious, is this a new thing, or is this something deeply rooted?
Oh man, this is deeply rooted. I feel like I came in as a dreamer. I basically came in as a lucid dreamer, and one of my earliest memories is having this dream journal that lit up. And so it's always been a big active part of my life. And it wasn't until about 5 or 6 years ago that I really returned to a practice. It had definitely been something that I chart and I talk with my friends a lot about. But I started to go to some different dream work events and schooling, and just sort of really diving in deeper to where we go for a third of our lives, people. Like, there's so much power there. There's so much magic. It really has helped me to see myself as like someone who's existing on multiple dimensions. And that's kind of the techie, science, nerdy, or just metaphysical God part of it. And then there's the really practical part of it that when we go into the dream space and our minds and our brains go into this certain space, it's super, super healing. We're working out a lot of things that we've left in the waking dream, really. And so in the sleeping dream, it's like, I'm going to do this person a favor. I'm going to populate all these things from your subconscious. You're going to have this weird dream where all your teeth fall out, or you're naked in front of a bunch of people. And I'm going to leave you with the medicine of it. And sometimes it's literally just bringing back a fragment of the dream to discuss. And, sometimes it's just interacting with the dream. And then sometimes the dream is big and numinous, and it literally gives you information about things that are to come down the pike. So for me, dreams are so many things, and have been quite obsessed for a while, and feels like, okay, it's time to create something of value for people who, want to become more lucid, want to wake up in the dream.
I love that. Yeah, I'm in the process of writing my book right now too, and I'm just thinking a lot about that fourth dimensional of our multidimensional selves, that fourth dimension of time and space. And when we are waking, 8 hours feels like a long work day, but when we're sleeping 8 hours, it feels like that.
That's so true.
And you know what I mean? Just that shift of, wow, we are actually the ones that are creating time. And through that time in our dream state, sometimes I feel like we're needing this long sleep, or of course to nourish ourselves and whatnot. But there's work to be done in the subconscious. Yeah. And the only way that we can do it and get out of our own way sometimes is through our sleeping state.
Yeah. Ooh, I love that you tease that out about the time and space part, and how, when we're waking, ooh, that feels good. I like that.
I know. I have chills all over my body, but this is what I've been really focusing a lot on, because, you were talking earlier about, like, you still feel with your podcast, there's still something there, but you're being called to this right now. And, for 6 months, I didn't have this podcast running because I had so many wild health issues of sleepwalking. I've been having a lot of sleepwalking issues and seizures. I actually had a sleepwalking episode 2 days ago. And my mom was like, I think you should cancel that podcast interview with you today. And I was like, no, something's telling me, like, there's medicine there for me that is to come. And so I don't feel drained from it. There's something there for me to unlock as to what's been unfolding,
Yeah. And I have just like a really practical thing I want to tell you after this about this sort of this dream shaman who, just remind me to give you a link to some things that may feel helpful in the realms of sleepwalking and what could be happening when you're doing that.
Totally. Yeah. And I'll share it in the show notes as well, just in case if there's someone out there who's also navigating through it. But, like I said, I've always been connected to the dream state. I'm writing a book that's helping people find alignment, and how do we anchor in 5D unity consciousness by transcending the density of the 3D world and understanding that the time that we do have, which is a gift, this is what I was editing yesterday, but the time that we do have, that is a gift. It's up to us on how we allocate that precious time, that energy, that experience to heal, to answer the call, to clean up, to integrate. And these are all the things that we need to understand that, you're talking about the waking dreamer and also the sleeping dreamer, but how we allocate our time and with intention and purpose is how we'll be able to unify with God, with our highest self, with our truth, with our blessed up version of ourselves. And these are the things that we need to understand. These are the things that we need to continue to have more conversations around, because I think when we have the courage to share this or to share our experience, it can be something that can plant a seed for someone else that is on their journey or navigating through it and doing their best to figure out, oh, am I alone? Like, is there support out there for me? So I think it's really amazing that right now you're being called to really dive deeper into dreams and that lucid living, because there's a lot of craziness going on out there too. And sometimes that dream, can be a place where people can really reevaluate things as well.
I love that. And just hearing you speak has brought another dimension to what I'm doing. And like, we're doing the same thing, but using different language. And I was thinking as you were speaking that something that gives us that feeling of timelessness is presence. And so when we're asleep, it's like we've put, ideally we've put a lot of our other distractions to sleep. Sometimes when we're trying to go to sleep, all of those distractions want to come in, but there's something about how we can stretch time in the waking dream when we're fully present. Like, have you ever been with, like, it either goes one of two ways. You're falling in love, you're with someone new, and time is just sped up. It's like, okay, I've just spent all day with this person, but I just want more and more and more. Or sometimes it like slows down to this like dripping honey experience of time. And I know when we're like fully in the matrix, that 3D world, that beta brain, it's like we're on the hamster wheel, right? There's never enough time. I need 12 of me. I need 12 of me. And suddenly we come into our breath, we come into our moment. We release some of the need to have all those things done, and we experience some level of timelessness, right? And I'm like, okay, that's the key. It's like, actually, it's presence versus time. It's presence is what really makes us feel connected to ourselves and the beauty and our loved ones. Presence and lucidity are becoming like, oh, it's like kind of the same thing,
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, like I said, like these are all the things that I've just experienced or have really learned throughout my own journey, because it took me a lot of time of doing deep work, but from my subconscious development of my childhood, for instance, between those deep ages of 0 and 8, I had a lot of trauma, a lot of death. And even having this conversation with you right now, after in the journey of navigating through 4 deaths in 2 months right now, including my grandmother, she was buried 2 weeks ago. And then a week after she passed away, my best friend was found dead in a park. And so it's just like, I'm recognizing these patterns, right? Because I had a similar thing that happened when I was 17 with my best friend from high school and my childhood, and my grandfather 2 weeks later. And so it's also interesting to see how these patterns can be in our waking state, but can also be found in our dream state as well, too, when we're sleeping. And I think there's golden nuggets there to be found on the medicine that we're here to deliver. And I think there's a bigger purpose. And I think if we can shift out of that victim mentality of like, oh my God, all this shit is happening to me over and over again, or this is happening again, or pattern or whatever, into, hey, I'm going to be victorious and I'm going to be able to help other people navigate through this challenge I once was. There's more compassion that's also interwoven into the world, which I think is that love that we came here to help instill in our overall collective consciousness and our reality.
Yeah, I was trying to, as you're talking, another area that I'm working a lot in is grief. And how we can start to have a new relationship with grief. The course is called Grief as an Ally, and I try to run it 2 or 3 times a year because, my God, are we not all grieving? We're all in some form of, it's called big feelings. So there's how we interact with when we're having these big feelings of grief, of sadness, of loss. How do we let that energy transmute through us rather than it turning into density or pain. And maybe because I've been also navigating some physical changes and pain, I'm like, okay, this is like repressed grief and sadness. And usually I get a feel of what it is as it comes up, but I've really been releasing a lot of that old work. And I wanted to read a quote just about how if we don't grieve, it's actually a violence to ourselves because, and I don't have the exact quote, but it's by a man named Martine Preechtel, and I'll send it to you afterwards because it's so gorgeous. But it basically just says, you know, when we don't grieve, it is a violence against ourselves. It's a violence against who we've loved, because really what grief is it's loved turned like inward. And so when we grieve, we actually are saying like, I've loved you. This hurts so much. I've loved you. And our grief is a gift, you know? So I've really been trying to create spaces where people can come into the grief lodge and just be grieving, because there's really no space for it. It's like, okay, we're going to get back to work. I've got things to do. And even if you're doing this solo, there's a part of yourself that's like, I can't stay in this too long, you know? And, you know, maybe there is some wisdom to that, because having a purpose within your grief is going to pull you out of just, for some reason, this is the words that were been given to me, but just like your poopy diaper, right? It can feel like that. And grief isn't meant to be, you're not meant to just sit in it, right? Like for me, it's like how you move it, how you channel it, how you become one with it, how you let yourself be changed by it. So yeah, it feels like we're navigating a lot of the same. Yeah, that's why I was like, I don't even need to know what we're talking about. I'm just going to show up and have a conversation about like what's real for me.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for sharing, and thank you for doing that work, because I think that's been the big piece of the spiritual bypassing that's been happening in our collective, because like I said, I've been navigating through grief my entire life, and it's allowed me to be more compassionate. It's allowed me to be more kind and more understanding, and to hold that sacred space for my clients and people I'll meet in my life, just so that they feel seen. And I think that's what we're really craving a lot of right now, especially with this oversaturation of having to look right or present yourself right on social media and all these things. But I think there's someone who's truly done the work is comfortable showing the warts and all of themselves online, so that other people are like, I don't need to just show like my highlight reel of my life, because that to me isn't authentic and genuine and creative content, which is what I shared in an episode a couple of weeks ago. But there, you have every permission to be unapologetically you, warts and all. And like I said, the experiences that we've navigated through, there's no accident to it. And there's medicine and there's wisdom and there's guidance, not only for ourselves if that pattern comes up again, but for someone else. We'll meet down the line that, again, can continue to anchor in more of that unity, connection, consciousness. That is what we're here to really activate and anchor on this planet right now and beyond.
Yeah. And that's why vulnerability is such a powerful bonding mechanism. Like I always feel close to someone after I've cried, or like they showed me something that isn't just their highlight reel. And we're so hungry for authenticity and vulnerability, because it's like the world's a stage. It's such a facade, right? We're so over this idea that perfection even exists, or that we can like be a part of it, you know? It's like all shapes in nature are like organic and round. And maybe there's like a rock that has like a big chunk out of it, and something's happened to it and you don't know what's happened to it. And I find we're that same way. And when we show our truth, it has such a way of like calling the realness out of other people too. So that's why I do my best to show my warts and all.
Yeah. And I think that's just permission to be human, right?
Yeah,
and
totally.
I'm really grateful that we are living in a time where more people are having this conversation, especially for the younger generations, where they're feeling a lot more comfortable with people are being unapologetically who they are. Yeah. And, you know, I wish I had more of that when I was a kid, but it's okay. I have that compassion and understanding of what I've navigated through to be able to share that. But I want to really talk about here, because this has been so much of what we've been talking about up until now. I want to talk about the importance of filling up our cup first through self-nourishment and really taking care of ourselves and our needs before we can really help others and the planet at large. I know for me, I'm very big on social media sabbaticals, and like I've said, I'm showing up on social media here and there, but mostly like my devotion right now is myself and my health, because this is the journey I've been navigating through since June of last year. And I want to hear, you know, what has been your experience or of choosing to have that non-negotiable of you filling up your cup so that you can share from that space of overflow and really be of service.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll start with the shadow of that. And it's basically just like resentment 101. Here's resentment 101. Do too many things, try to be perfect, and don't take time for yourself. So when I feel that resentment creeping in is when I know I need to come back to self in some way, because I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that this can actually be fun. It can be juicy. It can be enlivening. And if I'm experiencing more of the shadow than the light, then that lets me know, especially with social media, it's like, okay, I got to take a break and come back to myself, because I mean, I have a pretty prolific amount of information in a lot of spaces. And it was that way before the internet. It's just who I am. When I would collect something, it wouldn't be just like one. I would be like, I think I need more and I want to experience more. And there's this whole minimalist thing. And like, I definitely get balance and order, but there's this whole, you know, everyone's like minimalist. It's like gray in their house. It's like gray on gray, or like and I love that too. But like, I'm a maximalist, actually. I like to have weird little, I just like my things, you know, for better, for worse. I like a lot of ideas coming in. And so for me, it's like when I start to feel cranky, unappreciated, all of those things where you might be pointing the finger at someone else, it's like, okay, let me pause and refill my cup. And for me, that feels like less screen time, more people time, less worrying about exactly what I need. Like, I need the world to make me happy, and focusing on someone else, like being a part of a community, giving something back. I just start to consider what that looks like. And a lot lately, it's been like, what would make my inner child happy? And it's simple. Like, oh, I want to wear pink today, and I want to have red hair. I want to go for a walk and put my feet in the grass. I want to remember something. I want to read a poem, you know? So hopefully that answered your question. And I think it's really important to do that, because then we can give authentically without control and without all of the mechanisms that we're seeing sort of fall down. And, you know, as a woman, especially like in relationships, the past would have been like me trying to like either make up for their lack of whatever. Okay, they're doing 20, I'll do 80% more, or like I'll go way out of the way, instead of trusting and stepping back and receiving. And so now it's just hearing that call and knowing when it's necessary. And, you know, obviously every day it's a daily thing, right? It's definitely a daily thing, but it's like actually being able to tune in and see what you need before the meltdown or the whatever manifests. And believe me, some stuff has manifested for me physically over the course of the last year. And it's been a blessing. It really has. But also as energetic beings, we can start to sense that before something turns into a solid reality, it's hanging out as an idea that's reoccurring in your dreams, or an idea that keeps coming up, and we can deal with it here. It's like here it's easier before it manifests into physicality. And it's okay. Like, part of this process is birthing things that we may not have consciously birthed. And realizing like, oh, okay, I can go down into my operating system. I can go into this space before it manifests, and I can affect change. And I think as we're coming into the age of Aquarius, it's going to be more and more and more about that etheric space. I mean, people are okay, I'm on a tangent. People are buying real estate on the metaverse, y'all.
Don't even get me started, girl. Okay. Don't get me started.
So listen, if that's not an indicator of, it's dumb. It's dumb. It's real dumb to me, because we need to take care of what we have out here. That's birth.
Amen.
But
Amen.
it's giving us an idea of who we are etherically. To me, it's like I can see it big picture, and then I can see the minutia of it, and I'm trying to pan out and get better idea of who I am the metaverse, actually, you know, like you don't have to pay to buy the real estate.
It's really funny you say that because I saw one of my good girlfriends. She posted this thing and it was like a meme. And it was like, first you got me with Pogs, then you got me with Beanie Babies, and now you're getting me with the metaverse. You know what I mean? And I just thought it was hilarious because it's, you know, there's been, and that can be also the pattern of making that mistake. You know what I mean? And, or, you know, who knows? I know there's a lot of people with a lot of money that have invested a lot of money into it, but it's like, why are you continuously bypassing the earth when this is why we're here? And to me, I think the metaverse is more like you were talking about, creating authentically without control. And to me, that feels like a control mechanism for people. Where they're not authentically themselves. They're hiding behind this avatar, whatever thing. And yeah, spending millions of dollars on something that's not tangible.
Yeah.
It's just to me, like, it's so silly. And I'm so grateful you said, like, what is this?
Yeah.
Because to me, like I said, there's so many other things that especially people with that much money can put in, like for our water.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? To actually to make a difference and to share a legacy of purpose rather than just keeping up with the tech. But, you know, that's the reality they're in. A lot of them are tech people.
Exactly.
So that's what they see. So it's like, oh, obviously, if that's the world that they're in on a physical, you know, surrounding or whatever, they're like, this obviously makes sense. But for those of us who are actually grounded, we're like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah. The tagline for the Matrix is just because I can, I will. And the tagline for the 5D, if you will, is about discernment. It's about wisdom. It's about a burning away of some of that like ego and bravado. And, you know, like you said, time is about like how we allocate, and our energy is a form of currency. And if we're giving our energy to all of these ideas and this like hamster wheel, then we can never really connect with our own true power, our own magnetism, our own ideas of what success are. And they're not, they're far more intrinsically based. And I find that, often the people who have the most intrinsic joy have the less shit, just less stuff, right? And the stuff will never end. They're going to try to sell us every single thing that we already have. And it's annoying. And I'm glad that we're talking about it.
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm just grateful. And I think like part of the deeper medicine of the pandemic too was that a lot of people had more time to do deeper research. And so I think for those who maybe haven't been as devoted on their self-awareness journey, that was the initiation for them. You know, I don't know about you, but I know my deep spiritual path really began in 2012. Actually, more so 2011. But like when I got struck by lightning in 2012, I'm like, all right, game on. This is why I'm here. And we finished, beyond a 7-year cycle from that 2012, 2013, that shift into the beginning of the Aquarian age. And I think we are the ones that had their awakening a couple years before 2012. We're the ones that are really here to be the not even the initiators. So I think God is the initiators, but we're here to help be leaders and to share from our experience and our wisdom. And so I want to talk about the alchemical process of really turning our pain into power.
That's a good question.
You know, we've been talking about grief. We've been talking about dream state. We've been talking about the subconscious. We've been talking about 3D to 5D, and there is alchemy, and during that transmutation of pain into power. So I would love to hear your experience with that on how it's made you the sovereign leader that you are today to really revolutionize the world with your medicine.
Man, that's a good one. I love that. The pain into power. The first thing that one must do to
I got chills.
Yeah, to alchemize their pain into power is to step into the pain. And that's a thing that I think, okay, so if we're numbing ourselves in any way, right? And we've all been there. This is no like judgment. This is just what
Totally.
I've learned over time, is that we have to, like, the only way through is through. So we have to be willing to go into our pain as soberly as possible, right? And there's gifts in that. There's gifts in really feeling the depths of the pain, and also feeling into what sort of shadowy figures are living in it, right? Like who's like, what's this energy in the corner that we haven't dealt with? Like this is the hero's journey. This is the heroine's journey. This is how you become trustworthy to yourself. It's not that the shadows don't exist, but we go into them and we become curious about who's lurking in the corner and what they believe. And we extend love. We basically extend light, and we become more light beings ourselves. And that's how we alchemize. And I think that even I've numbed and shut things down. And, you know, the beauty of the system is like, for a while, it can take it, right? It's like, okay, another layer. Okay. And then eventually something manifests that says, hey, stop right where you are. There's accumulation of the past. Let me figure out how I can release this. And sometimes it is through a disease, or it is through pain, or it is through something that we don't want to feel. But if we're not used to feeling it, our body is going to eventually do us a favor and stop us in our tracks. And, you know, before
Purge
that,
it.
exactly. Before that, it's just this daily invitation, and our emotions are the daily invitation into what's coming up for us. Like, are we clenching? What's the quality of our breath? It's so multi-layered, but it starts with the willingness to really feel what's happening, and we feel through the vehicle of our body. And obviously our thoughts have a felt quality to them. And we soon start to realize that we can either listen to the voice that's pretty pre-programmed. Like, here's one thing that sovereign's part of the word. And I'm thinking like, man, I've given away so much of my power, and maybe this is too much information, but I was doing an enema today, and I was like, do I have any business doing this to myself? Like, do I know enough about my own body? Like, I was legitimately afraid, and I needed someone to give me permission. And part of that is just our whole lives, we've been groomed to give away our power and seek outside information about an inside job, right? So the more that we reclaim that sovereignty, the more we're going to be able to alchemize pain into power, because we're not waiting for daddy. We're not waiting for someone to say, here you go. I know I meandered quite a bit around that question, but that's what immediately came up for me.
It's perfect, you know, and like, like I said, but that's also been part of the authentic content creation, to show that side. That's been part of the genuine connection with your following, your community, that has, to me, I think if you're able to be transparent about that, there's like you said earlier, there's a deeper level of respect that's cultivated through that, where the listener, the reader, the person, whoever, they feel seen. Yeah. And again, I'm very discerning. You're talking about fifth dimensional Aquarian age discernment. I've been super discerning on who I bring on this space, because I think it's important to have and to showcase genuine leaders. Because, you know, like in this world of social media, anyone can purchase followers or, you know, have some viral thing, but they're not genuine in who they are, because maybe they haven't done the work, or they're scared to look within. And again, no judgment. Yeah. But there's also really amazing people who've been devoted to the transparency and the honesty and the realness. And like I said, I think over time, because I don't know how social media is going to evolve. I know a lot of us are practicing more of that discernment on how much of our time and our presence we give to something, or the constant scroll or whatever. But if this is going to be a tool that's going to be around, we need to be discerning of how we honor our time, how we, what we put our energy into, who we're following, and also who we're listening to. Is there a comparison paralysis that's coming from those people? Or are you listening to those people because there's inspiration. I think that can also be part of the journey of alchemizing pain into power as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said.
You know, we're not looking for that external validation of our worthiness anymore. And that can be a painful pattern of our past. I know that was something that for me, I'm having a lot of low self-esteem and never really felt seen or heard when I was a kid, going through a lot of grief and a lot of death and struggles with my weight and my body and just my overall mental health. And at that time too, mental health was such a taboo in, you know, the 90s and early 2000s. So again, I'm grateful that there's a time where we're speaking up transparently and having more of these conversations and being able to offer more resources to help people as well. But I want to dive in as well to the massive role that you found yourself, how your passions really play, how they play in when it comes to you honoring your purpose.
I love that. I love that question. I feel really lucky to, well, like if you had told me as a little girl that, you know, you'd be this certain age and you'd be doing this thing that feels really exciting and nourishing and challenging at the same time, but that you really get to spend your time doing what you love. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe I would have been like, of course I will be, duh. But, you know, I went through a period where that sort of was hard to find. And so it's been this journey of almost just like really awakening the latent information that lies in a seed, right? So we're all these like seeds that come in with a will, a trajectory, something that wants to play out within us. And if we have the courage enough, I mean, it just sounds like every sort of like Lord of the Rings, but it's true. Like if you have the courage to like look within, then you find this deeper meaning, this adventure to life. And the thing about it is like, it's not a paved highway. It's not the one where they're like, come on, go this way, 2.5 kids, here's your whatever, here's your diploma, here's your thing. It's actually a bit outside of that because we've been given a really narrow view of what we can do and what it means to be human. And I've kind of lost the question, but that's what's like bubbling up for me, is that I've been on this real journey within myself to carve out a space where I uniquely fit. Like something I love to say in the space that I'm in. Basically, I just want to redirect people back to the brilliance that lives inside of them. And so it's like, yes, you can come and experience that within any container that I've made, but you don't need me. You don't need to stay with me. You don't need to keep following me. If you've gotten what you need and you're on your way, that's okay too. You know, there's something else I was going to say, but I lost it.
Yeah. It was just with your passions. I think you found that within yourself. And so that's what you want to unleash out there.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah.
So that's just to sum it up. But I don't get to ask. I have a few more topics I've really wanted to talk about with you because I don't get to talk about this one often. But I'm curious to hear how plant medicine has played a massive role in your healing journey and in your soul's evolution. Yeah. Because I mean, you ran the Holy Smokes podcast and you know, that's been such a big part of your brand as well. So I'd love to hear how this medicine and these medicines, plural, because there's so many different kinds of plant medicines out there, have really catalyzed you on your healing journey.
Well, even just like animal medicine, like I have this snake totem. I love the idea that we've evolved alongside plants and animals, and that before there were books that told us everything, that really the essence of the thing was speaking to us. So the only reason that we have these sacred recipes that have come down is because we've had ancestors who have had a deep, deep intrinsic relationship with plants. And from all of the research that I've done and from all the things that have been activated within me, it's like this was a plan and a part of human evolution. And I think there's a plant for everyone. Is it psychedelic? Does it blast you off outside of the DNA strand into the metaverse? Maybe not. Maybe like Bufo is not for you.
Define metaverse. Just kidding.
just all that exists outside of the bubble of our identity, our timeless self, right? Our soul, our essence, right? And I've had some amazingly powerful experiences with things that have, forced isn't the right word, but I love tough love. And, you know, sometimes we can so be like, nope, I'm in the driver's seat. I got this. And my invitation into plant medicine was like, yes, you have been given the opportunity to co-create, but there's something beyond that. And there are forces that are really strong, yet loving, that can show you so many things. And so I felt like a late bloomer a lot because I grew up super religious and dogmatic. And so never really thought that any of those things would be a part of my life, because I was like on Dare and I was a good girl and, you know, just like all the things. And then as time happened and I evolved, I got invited into the plant initiations, and they haven't completed. I mean, there's definitely people that like sit all the time, and I think that can start to be problematic in many ways. And I think our sort of quick fix society has us, you know, like we go to a sacred medicine and we bring that same like, go, get him. I'm going to like eradicate this thing and I'm going to get to the bottom of it and I'm going to heal it automatically. And I think life is more of an unfolding. And so for me, it's like, at first it was like, you know, a bit of an obsession. I was like, wow, like this is so amazing. And now it feels like I'm in this deeper relationship with it. Like the romance phase is weared off. And I'm like, okay, there really is something here, but also big periods of integration. So we can step in, and sometimes we can have these big peak moments without the many little titrated steps that help it really land within our consciousness and within ourselves to move in a different way. And so, yes, I've experimented, and I love that because I'm deeply curious. And I think that's a part of the thing. It's like, oh, if these two substances happen, or if I'm on a little microdose of mushrooms, I feel this, or wow, cannabis can make me feel really creative. And so I have been, over the course of the last really just 7 or 8 years, opening myself to those experiences. And I found they've been like supercharging. They just opened me up. There's no other way to put it, that just spirit could just come rushing in where there was like blockages. It just like, I don't know, I see like sediment
transmuted
being, like, shook
in
out
a
of
way.
me. Exactly. Like all of the impurities being like shook out. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Mean, like I said, so many parallels. I actually have a funny Dare story. When I was in Dare in like 5th grade, and we had like an anonymous box where we could ask Officer Pete questions. And I asked Officer Pete, if cannabis is bad, why is Susan Sarandon smoking it in Stepmom, and it's helping her with her pain from her cancer?
Look at you go.
But I was like 10 years old.
Yeah. Good for you, actually.
And he couldn't answer. And I was in Catholic school, because I very similar. Like I grew up in a very dogmatic Italian immigrant household where it was like my grandmother always saying, be careful, it's danger out there. When I left the house and went to church with her every Sunday, I totally understand. But you know, those that really sparked something when I was 10 years old. I was like, you can't answer that, but where's the similarities of what's being presented, and then seeing it throughout my own journey, that actually was a tool that really helped me, especially when I navigating through and healing and just presence. But then, like you said too, there is that time where we can overindulge and we become disconnected from it because we don't allow that time of integration. I was just having that conversation with my dad, like now cannabis today, the strains are so strong. Yeah. With the potency, and I'm in California, so it's like, you know, I told my dad, it's been like a year since I've smoked, just because of all my health issues. But when I was smoking recently, I would have to make spliffs with chamomile, lavender, and rose, and a little bit, just a very little of cannabis. So in a way, I was microdosing it because it's too strong for me. So I think there's also that understanding and awareness of, yes, like maybe some things like to go out of your comfort zone, to take that edge and to take that leap. but also what's too much. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people overindulge in deep plant medicine ceremonies of ayahuasca or whatever. And, you know, to each their own. But I don't know, for me personally, I'm just such a huge proponent of microdosing. Because I think, especially if you're someone who's been devoted to the work and you have a deep understanding of yourself, like you said, when you were talking about like, you don't need me anymore. You know what I mean? There's a purpose to it, and people or things can come into your life for that season. And, you know, but I think you have the power within yourself to maybe work with these tools or work with this coach or work with this mentor or whatever. And you just need that little shift. I don't think we necessarily need to go like full blast all the time. And I know that's something that I'm passionate on sharing, and who knows, maybe that's part of the DARE education I got from, like, you know, my childhood in that sense. But it's also being able, and I think this goes in all areas of life, how can we cultivate balance? And I think going back to what you said earlier, this is part of the discernment journey that we're really navigating through on what is too much, and when is enough.
Yeah, I like the slow and steady path now. It feels really sensual. It feels like, okay, I'm taking a tiny little bite, and then I'm allowing my body, my experience to digest it, and then I'm taking another one, and ultimately we get there, right? We still get wherever there is, but it's a totally different journey than bringing that hustle from the matrix into spirituality. And I think that's part of what's being illuminated and extricated and all the other words for we're letting it go to find we're coming back to balance, right? I see the pendulum swinging, and it swings really far out, right? And then it comes back into like the shamanic path, which is the middle path, right? It's the ability to be in the world, but not of the world. It's the ability to be in liminal space with ourselves instead of going to like reaction. It's like all the things, actually. And, you know, I think being a younger person, it would have sounded really boring to go the middle way. I'd be like, no, like, I want that, like, that edge, and that, you know, I want my skirt blown up. And now it's like, okay, my skirt can be blown up by like slowing down and like actually enjoying it and savoring it and bringing like this level of presence that outdoes performance or a lot of like big movements. It's like these little, like even in bar class, the class I go to, and they always say, use muscle over momentum. And a lot of people are just out there just flailing, right? And then it takes like wisdom and discernment and practice and devotion to actually like lift your leg in this way without just like throwing it, right? And to me, that's what feels really good, you know, to like get off the hamster wheel in many ways. And it, you know, it doesn't mean that there's not passion. It doesn't mean that there's not long nights. It doesn't mean that there's not challenges. But I think it, you know, just that the thing that we're talking about really makes, and on a really practical level, just makes life manageable. It makes us be able to be more in connection with our joy and our heart, and truth.
I love that. So I'm guessing that's just been really the driving force that you've been wanting to share within your communities and, you know, your students and whatnot. And I know you have a retreat coming up as well. So what was the intention on putting this together and cultivating that space for transformation?
Well, I think, you know, I feel people are ready to gather together. I mean, the last 2 years have been really harrowing, and I think many of us are ready to be in person and experience that alchemy. And I thought there's no better backdrop than someplace that's like beautiful and warm, and the sunshine is energizing us. And then we're taking this deep dive into the heart, which can be scary, right? I love the analogy of as the heart as a cave. It's just like this endless cave of information. It can connect us to other realms, but it also has really practical implications for life. And I'm like, okay, after my mom passed away, I was really given this big download about the amount of broken hearts just sort of walking around with no place to go, with all this energy to be in the presence of. And so the way of the heart for me is that it's that slowing down to be able to get into the chambers of the heart and to really understand yourself from that level, to experience healing, to experience joy and creativity. For me, it's like, what isn't contained in this space, but then actually creating intention around navigating some of it. Because it can be, I mean, heartbreak can make you feel like your life is over and you're dying physically. So like, there's so much power here. And for me, the way of the heart is just an immersive experience back to yourself through the avenue of the heart, which I think is really powerful. We've been run by logic for so long, and it seems really like disrupting to actually like use the power of the heart, which we know is 60 times more powerful just on like a physical level. The body creates an energy field, and the heart power is 60 times more than the mind. And we like worship at the mind. And, you know, we want to make the mind a servant to the heart.
Love that. Yeah. So you're doing that in May, right? May 12th to the 15th, I think you said, right? In Mexico?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. Yeah,
and there's such ancestral medicine in the land of Mexico.
Totally.
You know,
the
it's
waters.
there's just such a profound, interwoven medicine of this and spirit that really reigns supreme there. So all of the links are going to be in the show notes. If you're interested and you're listening, you're like, okay, this conversation has really taken me to higher heights, and I'm ready to also dive in deeper and return back to the heart. But to close out this incredible conversation, I've had such an amazing time with you. And like, I'm just still blown away by all the parallels between us. But I want to ask my lightning round questions that I close out every episode with. Okay. What does sovereignty mean to you?
It means to be able to stand for and with another without knowing that they're capable. I'm just here as... I'm just here holding space.
I love that. What concert would you say was one that really shifted, revolutionized your life? It was just pure medicine.
Man, that's a really good question. I'm such a dork. Okay, well, the person I've been to see in concert the most is someone named Citizen Cope. I've been so many times that we're friends now.
Gosh, yes.
He just knows me now. Hi, Clarence. We just talked today, actually, on the gram. Yeah, I think that. I don't know what it was about it, but yeah, Cope.
I definitely listened to Citizen Cope like years ago, so that's amazing.
Nice.
I was a music journalist before all this craziness, so...
Wow, that's so cool to know.
So I value that. What would you say to your younger self that you wish or you always needed to hear?
Keep going. You'll find the light. You'll find your beauty. It's all going to be worth the perceived struggle. And it was, and it is, but I think I just try to reassure myself.
I love that. What would you say is like the most profound book you've ever read?
The Shamanic Way of the Bee. It really changed my ever-evolving relationship with nature, really, and knowing it as this intelligent, mystical life force. Yeah, it's an important book.
I love that. Where can we find more of you?
Just my name, Ayesha Ophelia, or you could type in the Girlfriend Manifesto. I always just say all roads lead home, and yeah, you'll find me. Instagram, my website, whatever.
I love that. And what last little nugget of wisdom do you want to share?
I think just gratitude. I think we've all seen these memes about how we just wouldn't incarnate again. We're just so over it. How would I have chosen to be a part of this? And I'm finding this real sweet, the joy of being alive and remembering the beauty is what makes suffering worth it or whatever. And that you've got community. You've always got community. And sometimes looks like invisible helpers. I love it that we invoked that spirit of help, because we're not here just on our own accord. I'm not telling myself to breathe or beat my heart. There is this deep intelligence that we are connected to and a part of that wants to be in deep relationship with us. So that feels, because I love going deep. It feels good that there's something
Me
else
too.
that is willing, available, and ready, and will show me itself through everything in the world. Yeah.
Well, it's safe to say I feel like I've really gotten closer to a soul sister I didn't know I had with this episode. So I appreciate you, Ayesha, for coming here. Let us know what you think. Check her out if you're interested in diving in deep and going on that retreat. Let her know you heard this conversation and you're ready to take that leap. And in the meantime, I just want you all to know that whatever it is you've endured, there's a divine purpose to it. And you have the power, you have the ability to reclaim that power back and to rewrite that story and to really understand that there's a purpose behind it all. And you are here. You have the opportunity to really unleash your medicine from it all. So again, thank you, sis, for being here. Thank you for taking the time. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And we'll be seeing you soon. Take care.